Welcome back to episode 14 of The Gray Files, where we peel back the layers of technology, economics, data science, and even the human condition itself, all in an effort to try and understand this vast and often perplexing world we live in. I'm your host, Erika Barker, and tonight, we're examining the invisible architecture that shapes everything from your morning coffee supply chain to the cryptocurrency in your digital wallet, from the ant colonies beneath your feet to the tech giants that dominate your screen time. We're talking about centralization versus decentralization. This tension of centralized versus decentralized is playing out right now in ways that will determine whether you have a job in 10 years, whether democracy survives the digital age, and whether the next pandemic response saves millions or sacrifices them to bureaucratic paralysis. Part 1. The pattern hidden in plain sight. You wake up tomorrow morning and reach for your phone. That device connects to a cell tower owned by one of 3 major carriers who control 99% of American wireless infrastructure. You check Instagram, owned by Meta. Search something on Google, maybe order something from Amazon. By the time you've been awake for 10 minutes, you've already interfaced with more concentrated power than most humans throughout history encountered in their entire lives. But here's what's weird. The same phone also connects you to millions of independent podcasters, like yours truly, newsletter writers, and small businesses selling directly to consumers. You can transfer money peer-to-peer without asking a bank's permission. You can learn quantum physics from a professor in Mumbai or woodworking from a craftsman in rural Montana. This is the paradox of our current moment. We are simultaneously experiencing the greatest concentration of corporate power in human history and the most radical democratization of information and commerce ever achieved. It's like we're building a feudal empire and a digital commune at the same exact time, often using the exact same technologies. Now, to understand how we got here, and more importantly, where we're heading, we need to recognize that this tension between centralization and decentralization isn't some modern invention. It's a pattern that nature discovered billions of years ago, and we've been unconsciously copying it ever since. Think about your own body for a second. Your heart is centralized, one organ pumping blood through your entire system. Lose it, and you're dead in minutes. But your immune system? That's actually radically decentralized millions of white blood cells operating independently, each one capable of recognizing and responding to threats without waiting for orders from headquarters. Evolution spent millions of years testing different organizational structures, and the winners were the organisms that survived and thrived and almost always blend both approaches. Pure centralization creates fatal vulnerabilities. Pure decentralization creates chaos. Success lies in knowing when to concentrate power and when to distribute it. Part 2. When humans first wrestled with scale. There is an ancient 9,000-year-old settlement in modern-day Turkey called Çatalhöyük. And for you historians out there, I hope I pronounced that right. Now, this ancient wonder built by our ancestors might be humanity's first attempt at radical social decentralization. So imagine for a moment 8,000 people living in a honeycomb of attached houses. No streets, No central plaza, no palace. Everyone entered their homes through holes in the roof. Archaeologists have found no evidence of social hierarchy. No rich neighborhoods, no poor districts, no grand buildings for rulers. For over 1,000 years, these people maintained a radically egalitarian society. Now, fast forward a few millennia to ancient Sumer and Mesopotamia. Complete opposite story here. Massive temples dominated the skyline. Priest kings controlled vast irrigation networks. Clay tablets record elaborate bureaucracies tracking everything from grain distribution to military conscription. Now, the city of Uruk had a population similar to Çatalhöyük, but its organization couldn't have been more different. So why did some early humans choose radical equality while others built hierarchies? The answer is brutally practical: environment and technology. Çatalhöyük sat in a region with reliable rainfall and abundant wild resources. Small family groups could feed themselves without massive coordination, but in Mesopotamia, the rivers were lifelines in a desert, flooding unpredictably, requiring enormous communal effort to build and maintain irrigation systems. You literally couldn't have survived without central planning. This pattern keeps repeating throughout history. The Roman Empire, peak centralization. One city controlling 3 continents, standardizing everything from currency to concrete recipes. When Rome fell, Europe shattered into thousands of feudal domains. Or peak decentralization. Each lord controlled his own territory, minted his own coins, made his own laws. Neither system was inherently better. Rome built aqueducts and amphitheaters that still stand today. Medieval craftsmen created innovations in agriculture and architecture that Rome never achieved. The difference was in what each system optimized for. Rome maximized coordination and scale. Feudalism maximized local adaptation and resilience. Part 3. Nature's R&D Department. But humans are rookie architects compared to nature. Evolution has been running organizational experiments for 3.8 billion years, and the results are instructive. Take slime molds. Yes, slime. So stay with me here. This gets wild. Physarum polycephalum spends most of its life as thousands of individual cells, each doing its own thing, hunting bacteria in the soil. But when food gets scarce, something remarkable happens. The cells release chemical signals that trigger aggregation. They flow together, forming a single organism that can be several feet across, a bright yellow blob that moves and thinks as one entity. This slime mold can solve mazes, find the shortest path between food sources, even recreate the Tokyo subway system when food is placed at station locations. It has no brain, no central processor, yet it exhibits intelligent behavior through the interaction of simple parts following simple rules. Or consider how your brain actually works. We talk about consciousness like it's centralized. I think, therefore I am. But neuroscience reveals something messier. You don't have one unified brain. You have dozens of specialized modules. Your visual cortex processes images. Your amygdala handles fear. Your hippocampus manages memory. These modules operate semi-independently, often contradicting each other, somehow creating the illusion of unified experience. When neuroscientist Michael Gazzaniga studied split brain patients, people whose corpus callosum had been severed to treat epilepsy, he discovered that the left and right hemispheres could make different decisions simultaneously. Show a picture to only the right hemisphere, and the person's left hand would draw what it saw, while their verbal left hemisphere made up explanations for why they were drawing, having no idea what the right hemisphere had seen. We are not unified beings. We are committees pretending to be individuals. The most sophisticated example might be colonial organisms like the Portuguese man-o-war. What looks like a single jellyfish is actually a colony of specialized organisms called zooids. Some form the float, others the tentacles, others handle digestion. They can't survive independently, yet there's no central command. They coordinate through chemical gradients and mechanical connections, creating an emergent individual from distributed parts. Even in nature's most decentralized systems, patterns of centralization emerge. Ant colonies appear decentralized. No ant understands the whole operation. Yet certain ants become information hubs, touching more nestmates and influencing colony decisions disproportionately. Fungal networks that connect forest trees operate peer-to-peer, but older, larger trees become supernodes, controlling resource flow across the network. Pure decentralization, it turns out, is unstable. Power accumulates. Hubs emerge. The question isn't whether centralization will occur, but how to manage it when it does. Part 4. The digital bait and switch. The internet was supposed to be different, built to survive nuclear war. ARPANET distributed control across nodes with no central authority. Early cyber utopians preached a gospel of decentralization. Information wants to be free. Hierarchies would dissolve. We would build a new society in cyberspace beyond reach of governments and corporations. Tim Berners-Lee didn't need permission to invent the World Wide Web. Anyone could start a website. Email ran on thousands of independent servers. Internet relay chat let people form communities without corporate oversight. It felt revolutionary because it was revolutionary for about 15 minutes. Then network effects kicked in. See, in digital networks, we have this nasty property. The value of a network increases exponentially with the number of users. This creates winner-takes-all dynamics. Why join a small social network when everyone's on Facebook? Why sell on your own website when Amazon has all the customers? By 2024, the internet looks nothing like what the pioneers envisioned. Google processes 92% of searches. Amazon controls 38% of e-commerce and 34% of cloud computing. Meta owns the social graph of 3 billion humans. Apple and Google gatekeep every mobile app. Microsoft is trying to own the entire AI ecosystem by partnering with OpenAI. The decentralized network became feudal, with tech lords controlling digital fiefdoms. And here's the really insidious part. They used the language of decentralization to build centralized empires. We're just a platform, they said. We're empowering creators. We're giving everyone a voice. Sure, you can speak freely on Twitter, now X, unless the algorithm decides not to show your tweets. You can sell on Amazon, that is, until they copy your product and undercut your price. You can create content for YouTube, But they keep 45% of ad revenue and can demonetize you without explanation. This isn't just about corporate power. These companies know more about you than any entity in history. Google knows what you're thinking before you do. Facebook knows your relationships better than you do. Amazon knows what you'll buy next week. This information asymmetry creates unprecedented manipulation potential. Cambridge Analytica used Facebook data to build psychological profiles of voters, crafting personalized propaganda that may have swung elections. TikTok's algorithm can shift cultural norms by deciding which content goes viral. A handful of engineers in Silicon Valley literally shape the thoughts of billions. Part 5. Enter the blockchain resistance. On October 31st of 2008, in the middle of the financial crisis, someone using the name Satoshi Nakamoto dropped a 9-page PDF on a cryptography mailing list. The paper described Bitcoin, but it was really declaring war on centralization itself. Bitcoin solved the problem that had plagued computer scientists for decades: how to achieve consensus without central authority. Think about how money usually works. When you swipe your credit card, a bank verifies you have funds and processes the transactions. The bank is the central authority that prevents double spending and maintains the ledger. Bitcoin eliminated the bank. Instead, thousands of computers maintain identical copies of every transaction ever made. When you send Bitcoin, the transaction broadcasts to the entire network. Miners, computers solving complex mathematical puzzles, compete to bundle transactions into blocks and add them to the chain. The genius is the incentives. Miners get rewarded with new Bitcoin for maintaining the ledger honestly. Attacking the network would require controlling 51% of global mining power. Possible in theory, but so expensive it would destroy the value of whatever you stole. It's like a bank vault that gets stronger with the more people who try to rob it. But Bitcoin was just the beginning. Ethereum introduced smart contracts, programs that automatically execute when conditions are met. So imagine escrow without lawyers, insurance without companies, loans without banks. The code is law, running exactly as written, unstoppable and unchangeable. This spawned DeFi, or decentralized finance, where billions of dollars flow through protocols with no company behind them. Uniswap, a decentralized exchange, processes more volume than many traditional stock exchanges. Yet, it's just code running on Ethereum. No CEO, no headquarters, no customer service. Then came NFTs, and everyone lost their mind over JPEGs selling for millions. But forget the speculation. The underlying technology enables digital ownership without central authorities. Musicians can sell music directly to fans. Artists can earn royalties automatically forever. Writers can publish without publishers. DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organizations, push this even further. These are companies without companies, organizations governed by code and token voting. Constitution DAO raised $42 million in 72 hours to buy an original copy of the US Constitution. Now, they failed, but it proved crowds could coordinate massive action without traditional structures. The promise is intoxicating. Eliminate intermediaries, reduce fees, increase transparency, give power back to users. But the reality? Well, It's more complicated. Part 6: When Decentralization Dreams Meet Reality. Here is what the crypto evangelist doesn't tell you. Decentralization is expensive, inefficient, and often re-centralizes anyway. Bitcoin processes 7 transactions per second. Visa handles 65,000. Each Bitcoin transaction uses as much electricity as an American household uses in a month. The network consumes more power than entire countries, mostly from fossil fuels. To maintain decentralization that most users don't actually use, they keep their Bitcoin on centralized exchanges like Coinbase. The DAO, the first major decentralized organization, raised $150 million in 2016 to create a leaderless venture fund. Within weeks, hackers exploited a code bug, draining $50 million. The community faced an impossible choice: let the theft stand, code as law, or violate decentralization's core principle by reversing the hack. They chose reversal, forking Ethereum into 2 competing versions, destroying the illusion of unstoppable code. Even successful DeFi protocols trend toward centralization. Uniswap controlled by venture capital firms who own most governance tokens. Bitcoin mining is dominated by a handful of pools. Ethereum staking is concentrated among a few large validators. The decentralized web runs on centralized infrastructure. Amazon Web Services host 35% of Ethereum nodes. Worse, decentralization often means no accountability. Lose your Bitcoin password, your money is gone forever. Smart contract bug drains your funds, there is no customer service to call. Get scammed in DeFi? Well, there are no regulations to protect you. The same system that prevents censorship also prevents consumer protection. And the user experience? Brutal. Setting up a crypto wallet requires understanding seed phrases, gas fees, network confirmations, and key management. One wrong character in an address sends money into the void. It's like the early internet if one typo could delete your life savings. Now, this isn't to say blockchain is worthless. For specific uses, like international remittances, programmable money, censorship resistance, it's revolutionary. But the maximalist version of decentralizing everything? That's colliding with reality's constraints. Part 7: The Hybrid Future Taking Shape. The real innovation isn't choosing centralization or decentralization. It's combining them intelligently. And we're starting to see what that looks like. Consider how modern supply chains actually work. Walmart's inventory system is radically centralized. Algorithms tracking every product, optimizing distribution with military precision. But the system depends on thousands of independent suppliers, truckers, and store managers making autonomous decisions. It's centralized coordination of decentralized actors. Or look at how China approaches governance. The Communist Party maintains absolute political centralization while allowing economic decentralization and special economic zones. Shenzhen went from fishing village to megacity through local experimentation with central guidelines. It's authoritarianism with Chinese characteristics. Centralized power enabling decentralized innovation. The internet itself is evolving toward hybrid models. Content delivery networks like Cloudflare centralize infrastructure while distributing data to edge servers worldwide. Your Netflix stream comes from a server nearby, not California, combining centralized catalogs with decentralized delivery. Even blockchain projects are embracing hybrids. Layer 2 solutions like Lightning Network handles small Bitcoin transactions off-chain, settling periodically on the main chain. It's like having local banks that occasionally reconcile with a central bank, decentralized enough for efficiency, centralized enough for security. Modern cities are experiments in organizational balance. Singapore runs like a corporation, centralized planning, efficient execution, limited democracy. San Francisco embraces decentralization, local activism, not in my backyard resistance, and governance gridlock. Singapore builds infrastructure. San Francisco builds character. Neither model is obviously superior. The pandemic revealed both models' limitations. Centralized responses like China's zero COVID worked until they didn't, creating brittleness that shattered suddenly. Decentralized responses like America's federalism created inconsistency that killed hundreds of thousands. The countries that did best, well, they were South Korea, Taiwan, and New Zealand. They had a balanced central coordination with local adaptation. Part 8. The stakes of getting this wrong. We are entering an era where the centralization-decentralization balance becomes existential. Get it wrong and democracy dies, either from authoritarian centralization or anarchic fragmentation. Artificial intelligence is the immediate battleground. Should AGI or artificial general intelligence be centralized for safety or decentralized for democracy? OpenAI started as a non-profit promising to democratize AI, then became a for-profit controlled by Microsoft. Google and Meta hoard AI talent and computing power. China's government directly controls AI development. The centralization argument is compelling. AGI could be humanity's last invention, either solving all problems or ending civilization. Shouldn't we ensure careful, controlled development? But who do you trust with that power? The same governments that brought us massive surveillance? The same corporations that created attention harvesting, nurturing algorithms? The decentralization argument sounds better. Open source AI, democratic access, innovation through competition. But imagine every terrorist with access to AGI, every dictator with superhuman manipulation tools, every criminal with perfect deepfakes. Decentralized AGI could mean decentralized catastrophe. Climate change poses similar dilemmas. The atmosphere is a global commons requiring coordinated response, seemingly demanding centralization. But the IPCC's consensus approach has produced minimal progress. Meanwhile, decentralized innovation in solar panels and batteries is actually reducing emissions. Which works better, global agreements or local actions? The future of work hangs on these choices. Automation could create hyper-centralized corporations where algorithms manage humans like robots. Or it could enable radical decentralization, individuals selling skills through blockchain markets, forming temporary teams for projects, dissolving and reforming like digital flash mobs. Space colonization will force new organizational experiments. Mars colonies must be largely autonomous. Earth is 14 minutes away at light speed, but they'll depend on Earth for technology and genetic diversity. Will space colonies become independent states or permanent vassals? Even biology is up for grabs. CRISPR enables garage labs to edit genes. Should this be centrally regulated or democratically distributed? Central control prevents disasters but slows innovation. Decentralization accelerates progress but enables bioweapons. The choice might determine whether we cure aging or create super plagues. Part 9. The operating system for tomorrow. So, what do we actually do with this knowledge? How do we build systems that capture centralization's efficiency and decentralization's resilience without falling into either extreme? First, we must recognize that pure states don't exist. Every system is a hybrid. The question is where you draw the boundaries. Amazon is internally centralized but operates in a decentralized market. Bitcoin is decentralized in protocol but centralized in mining. Your body centralizes critical functions and decentralizes redundant ones. Second, we build reversibility into systems. The U.S. Constitution includes amendment procedures, meta rules for changing rules. Smart contracts should have upgrade mechanisms. Organizations need sunset clauses. Today's optimal structure won't be tomorrow's. We must design for evolution, not permanence. Third, we must match structure to purpose. Crisis response needs centralization. Someone must decide quickly. Innovation needs decentralization. Routine operations can be either, depending on scale and complexity. Don't apply ideological preferences, apply functional analysis. And fourth, we must create circuit breakers. When power concentrates beyond thresholds, automatic mechanisms should distribute it. When coordination fails beyond tolerance, emergency protocols should centralize it. Think of it like a thermostat for organizational temperature, maintaining balance through feedback loops. Fifth, embrace paradox. The most successful systems are simultaneously centralized and decentralized, depending on perspective and level of analysis. Your consciousness feels unified, but emerges from distributed processes. The internet has centralized platforms running on decentralized protocols. Accept contradiction as a feature, not a bug. And here's a practical example. Healthcare. America's system is accidentally decentralized. Thousands of insurers, providers, and regulations creating chaos. Britain's NHS is centralized, efficient, but inflexible. The optimal solution might be centralized insurance with decentralized provision, or standardized protocols with competitive delivery. The point isn't the specific answer, but the analytical framework. Or consider social media. Instead of choosing between corporate platforms, centralized, or blockchain alternatives, decentralized, we could mandate interoperability. Let users own their social graphs, moving between providers while maintaining connections. It's centralized standards enabling decentralized competition, pretty much the internet model applied to social networks. Part 10. The dance that never ends. So we've traveled from ancient settlements to artificial intelligence, from slime molds to smart contracts, discovering the same pattern everywhere. The internal tension between centralization and decentralization, order and chaos, hierarchy and network. This isn't a problem to solve, but a polarity to manage, like breathing. Societies must oscillate between consolidation and distribution. Centralize too much and you create brittleness and corruption. Decentralize too much and you create inefficiency and conflict. The sweet spot isn't a fixed point, but a dynamic balance, constantly adjusting to circumstances. The danger lies in ideological extremism. Libertarians preaching absolute decentralization, authoritarians demanding total control. Both ignore reality's complexity. nature uses both strategies simultaneously. Successful organizations blend both approaches. Your own body proves both can coexist. What's actually happening now is more subtle than simple centralization or decentralization. We are seeing power accumulate in new forms: network effects, data monopolies, algorithmic governance that don't fit traditional categories. Facebook isn't centralized like a government or decentralized like a market. It's something new, requiring new frameworks for understanding and managing power. The blockchain revolution isn't replacing centralization with decentralization. It's creating new hybrids. DAOs have governance tokens concentrated among founders. DeFi protocols have admin keys that can change the code. NFT markets depend on centralized platforms like OpenSea. The revolution is messier than the rhetoric. Meanwhile, traditional institutions are adopting decentralized features. Corporations implement internal markets. Governments experiment with participatory budgeting. Cities create autonomous zones for innovation. The old categories are dissolving. The future belongs to architects of balance, those who can design systems that gracefully shift between modes, maintaining stability while enabling adaptation. Those who can build bridges between centralized and decentralized domains. Those who understand that resilience comes not from choosing sides, but from transcending the dichotomy. Every organization you build, every system you design, every network you join involves these choices. Should your startup have a strong CEO or distributed leadership? Should your community use voting or consensus? Should your platform be open or curated? The answer is always contextual, always temporary, always evolving. What works for a 10-person startup fails for a 10,000-person corporation. What works in peacetime fails in crisis. What works for atoms fails for bits. The skill isn't choosing correctly once, but adapting continuously. Understanding these patterns gives you power to recognize when systems are becoming dangerously imbalanced, to predict when re-centralization or decentralization will occur, to design interventions that maintain productive tensions between forces. You now have the lens to see the eternal dance everywhere. You can recognize when power is accumulating toward dangerous concentration or fragmenting toward dysfunction. The question isn't whether the future will be centralized or decentralized. It will be both, in ways we're only beginning to imagine. The question is whether we'll consciously craft that balance or stumble into extremes through ignorance. Will we build systems that concentrate power beyond democratic accountability? Will we fragment into tribes unable to coordinate on existential challenges? Or will we find a dynamic balance that enables both efficiency and resilience, both coordination and innovation, both unity and diversity? That choice, made millions of times by billions of people, will determine whether humanity thrives or merely survives in the coming century. And it starts with understanding that centralization and decentralization aren't enemies to defeat, but partners in an eternal dance. The music plays on. The only question is, are you listening to the rhythm?